All advice given is for general information purposes. All legal cases are different, and you should seek the advice of your own attorney before acting or making decisions. No attorney-client privilege applies to communications on this show, and no attorney-client relationship is created by calling or writing in. Attorney Rominger practices only in Pennsylvania and maintains his primary office in Carlisle, Pennsylvania.
Well, welcome back. If you're just joining us, welcome. Carl Rominger here answering your legal questions, 540-0580. Tom, you're on the air. Hey, Tom. Tom.
Carl.
How are you?
Hey, good. Hey, I got a quick question for you. I was on vacation. We got back late last week, and there were a couple messages on my phone from PP&L asking me to call them. And I never did get a chance to get back to them because, again, it was late last week. And I get a letter in the mail from them today saying that they identified a problem with my electric meter. And they're saying that it was reporting, it was not reporting properly since January 14th of 2011.
Okay.
And they're saying that I'm liable for 8,175 kilowatts of consumption. And they want me to pay this.
How much is 8,175 kilowatts?
I really don't know. The bill that they sent me really isn't a bill. It's just like an account activity summary.
Right.
Okay, but it looks to me it's at least $1,000. Okay, and number one, how I want to know if am I liable for this? How do they even go about figuring out what I consumed during that time period?
Well, yeah, that's the question. And the answer is I would get in touch with the PUC. They
give me that as an option.
Yeah, I would get in touch with the PUC and say, hey, I want a verification. I mean, here's the theory. If you use it, and you owe for it, okay?
Right.
I mean, that's just the way it works. Yeah. On the other hand, this is my favorite. This reminds me of when they come into court and they tell you, well, the machine takes itself out of service when it doesn't work. And I go, well, what if it doesn't work taking itself out of service when it doesn't work? Oh, no, it takes itself out of service when it doesn't work. So, it's a tautology. And here they're telling you there was a problem with the meter, and now magically they've been able to reconstruct your exact consumption somehow.
Exactly.
It seems a little fishy, and you may find out that maybe this is based on some other math or averages or
history or something like that.
Right. And so you probably have
history can change because my kids have left the house over previous, over the past couple of years. So I haven't had that. They graduated, they left.
Bring a woman into your house and watch your hot water bill go up. I mean, that's the difference, and it's not unusual to see changes based on who's living in a house.
Right. Right. So you just contact PUC and see what they can do for me?
Yeah, I would start with them. I think that's your easiest, fast, most direct route.
Okay.
All right, my friend.
Thanks, Carl.
All right. Bye.
Bye-bye.
540-0580. May, you're next.
Yes, this is May. Thank you for letting me through. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
I'm in assisted living, and currently I don't have a POA, and I'm not really fond of having one.
Right.
So if I would become incapacitated or I should die, would I be able to have a paper drawn up ahead of time to say that a certain person is allowed to come into my room to handle my financial matters?
Yeah, you absolutely can do that. Well, first, you can have a will, obviously, so if something happens to you and you die, you can definitely designate who could come in and handle those things, which would probably be the executor of your will.
But if I were incapacitated, could I still have that paper?
Yeah, then what you need is a contingent power of attorney that says that I only want this power of attorney to be effectual in the event of incapacity.
And where would you find such a person if you didn't have a relative? Well, you could make a relative, but they could only come in if I was incapacitated.
Right.
Contingent. Okay, now, if I didn't have anything or whatever, who would my sister go to get into the room, and how quickly could she do that?
Well, they may or may not let her in, but if you've passed away, she'll get in due course. If you're just incapacitated, she may need to get herself appointed as guardian.
And how long does that take?
That takes a little bit of work. It'd be easier to give her a power of attorney.
The contingent one, you mean?
Yeah.
The contingent. What do they call the other power of attorney?
Well, we have just regular powers of attorney. They can be very specific. In fact, you could just write a power of attorney that says that it can only be used under the following circumstances for the following things.
Oh, that's wonderful, because I contacted someone at an agency that provides power of attorneys, but it seemed like they just wanted power over all your matters.
One size fits all.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Okay, well, I'll look into that, and thank you very much.
All right, May.
Bye-bye.
Take care. 540-0580. Jose. Josie.
Hi, how are you?
Josie. It wasn't Jose. All right. Well, I can't read.
Can you hear me?
I gotcha.
I wanted to tell you, my son recently got a DUI. The state police stopped him, and they gave him 2 breathalyzers. Apparently, they couldn't get a good reading, or they thought he wasn't cooperating. He took him down to the hospital and got a blood test, and it was just a little bit. What is the
0.08?
Okay, he had a .087.
Okay.
And he's pretty upset because he just had a new baby and he doesn't want to lose his license and everything. Do you think if he gets a good lawyer, he could beat this in any way?
No prior offenses?
Well, I think he has some speeding tickets.
But no prior DUIs?
Pardon?
No prior DUIs?
No.
Yeah, the answer is, could he beat it? We'd have to look at it very carefully. Could we get him probably into a program where he doesn't lose his license and doesn't go to jail? Definitely, under those circumstances. I should say almost close to definitely.
He'd have to plead guilty to the DUI, though?
No, and that's the other thing is we could probably get it expunged through a program called ARD, Accelerated Rehabilitative Disposition. On the other hand, I've had cases where people are ARD eligible, but when we get to the preliminary hearing, we're able to work it out and perhaps get rid of the DUI charge entirely. And we did that in one case I'm thinking of in Dauphin County, where we turned it into a stop sign violation because I was able to convince the officer that there was a defect in the stop. Here, the BAC is very close to the margin of error, and it may be able to be defeated that way. But these are the kinds of questions that have to be carefully vetted. And what I mean by that is I would be remiss to say, yes, he could beat it or not beat it. And here's the rub. Sometimes the government looks at you and says, well, we can offer you this expungement program where he won't lose his driver's license and he won't go to jail and it'll all come off his record. But if he wants to fight it, we're taking that off the table. So it's an all or none proposition then. And that's fair. That's fair play by them.
Well, isn't it like, it's like if it's .087, it's like being sort of pregnant or not pregnant? I mean, it was over the limit.
Yeah, and that's what I mean, unless you're going to get in a fight. Now, if you told me he was a CDL driver, okay, then he's going to lose his CDL for a year and then risk a lifetime loss, then we might not lay down because .087 is a result, okay? It's not necessarily the number. And so what you learn is that the blood test itself has a margin of error and acceptable percentages because these were all designed for doctors to figure out how much alcohol was in you, and they don't need to know whether you're at .071 or at .085. They just need to know a general range when they're trying to determine whether to give you anesthesia or how long it's going to take till you sober up and all those kinds of important emergency room questions.
So you're saying there is a little wiggle room even though it was over the limit?
Oh, yeah. I mean, and all the time BACs can be challenged. Sometimes you can keep the results out. Sometimes you can get a percentage of error. But usually for first offenders who are ARD eligible, you're not going to want to fund that kind of legal challenge either.
How much would you charge to do that, or can't you say that on the air?
Well, what county is it in?
He's in Dauphin.
Dauphin. I would charge $1,500.
$1,500, and would that be to take it and to fight it, or just?
That would be to go to the preliminary hearing and do what we need to do there, and if he gets into the ARD court, to go along to ARD court with him.
Well, he's already gone to the DJ, and he's appealing it down to Dauphin County.
Okay.
So let me ask you, how often, if things go bad, how long do you usually use your license for this?
You can use your license for up to 18 months, a year or 18 months on a DUI, but on a first offense DUI in that range, he shouldn't lose his license at all if he does it right. I got to go to break.
Do they go to jail?
He should be able to avoid jail time as well, but that's not a guarantee.
Now, let me ask you something. If he gets another one, how long?
If he gets another one, he's in a heck of a lot more trouble, and he's got 10 years for this to hang on. So, Josie, I'm going to let you go, but if you want to call my office, ask for Vinny Manfredo.
Okay.
Vinny will be able to handle Dauphin County DUI quite capably. Okay?
Benny. Okay, thanks. Bye.
All right, take care. Hey, welcome back. Carl Rominger here, 540-0580. Yes, our pizza has arrived. And suddenly the booth is full of people. How does that work? 540-0580. 540-0580 to answer your legal questions here. Chris, you're on the air.
Hi, Carl.
Yep.
Hi. Yeah, I had emailed my question in, but I thought I'd just call in, and I got right through. So my question is, actually it's two, but my daughter's 19 years old. She has had a couple years of making some poor choices, and she has a disorderly conduct and a underage.
Okay.
Now, the second was underage, and they took her license for 90 days, and it's been reinstated. Everything's fine with that, but she got a speeding ticket the other day, 15 miles over the speed limit, and I just want to know if could they take her license again?
I don't know how many points she has. I don't think an underage puts any points on your license.
No, she has no points.
So 15 over is going to put, I think, 3 or 4 points on her, and she would risk losing her license if she gets more points than that.
Mm-hmm.
My advice would be to plead not guilty and take the hearing and try to get into a no-point offense as part of a guilty plea.
Okay, and that's what we did, mail it back in with that, and that's what she's going to do. But I just didn't know, with the summary offenses and then having a speeding ticket, can the punishment be to take your license?
No. There's no license suspension per se on a speeding ticket unless it's over a certain speed.
Okay. This was 50 and 35.
Exactly.
Now, the other question I had was, the disorderly conduct, she pleaded guilty and just paid the fine. And the reason that she did that was because there was alcohol involved, and the officer just charged her with a disorderly conduct because it was so little that I guess he was giving her a break.
He's doing her a favor so she didn't lose her license.
Right. So pleaded guilty, paid the fine, which, I told her you are guilty, so you should be, that's what you need to do. And then the second one happened with the underage, and so she did lose her license for 90 days for that. Now, can she, she's saying that there's things that she could do to have this taken off her record, like the ARD or community service.
Once you've pled guilty, it's too late for that.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if she's pled guilty to both of them, however, they can be expunged, but she has to wait till she's at least 5 years past the last one of them with no offenses.
Okay, I think she didn't tell me about the underage. She handled it all on her own. I believe she did go to court for that.
How long ago was that?
That was, August, it will be a year.
Yeah, so we're at least 4 years away from being able to do anything about a record.
Okay, and it's because of pleading guilty to the disorderly conduct?
Yes, that put a permanent record on there.
Okay. All right, that's what I had read over some things, and that's what I had thought. If you plead guilty to a summary offense, then you have to wait 5 years before it can be
expunged. Yep,
expunged.
Absolutely.
Okay.
All right.
Okay, well, we had just been advised to just plead guilty because there had been alcohol. Yeah. It could have been worse for her if she had pleaded,
listen,
not guilty went to trial.
I often tell people this. I mean, there are times where you have to plead guilty. I mean, you don't have to plead guilty. You can require the state to prove their case. But like the guy from New Jersey who got who was driving through New Jersey and said they wrote him up for having his plate obscured instead of speeding.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Right.
Well, the police officers are sort of kind of giving you a plea bargain, and if you want to not take it, then the officer can just add back the speeding charge, and then you're going to lose that one. If there's a videotape of you robbing the bank, you're probably going to lose that one. So a plea deal that takes some time off a mandatory bank robbery sentence is probably in your best interest. And here, when you advised her to plead guilty to disorderly conduct, it was a sound thing to do. Now, if you'd hired an advocate like myself, I might have said, listen, as a backup, we'll plead guilty to disorderly conduct, but let's go in there and let me try to worm my way into the officer's brain with what a great idea it would be to work out an alternative scenario, even though I know he's already bent over backwards and done her a big favor. And then so sometimes it doesn't hurt to ask for more unless you're Oliver Twist, and then you're getting in trouble.
Mm-hmm. Well, we had hoped that there would never be another occurrence after that, but unfortunately
that's why I always say you have to plan for the future. So when people tell me they got a ticket, but they're not worried about it because they're never going to get another one again, I always say, let's fight the first one so I don't have to absolutely win the third one.
Right. Now she understands that anything else with, as far as underage things, that she would lose her license for, I think it's a year.
She better hurry up and turn 21.
Yeah. Well, we still have another, she'll be 20 in August this year, so.
Might need to stop drinking. That might be the other way, easier way.
That would be the better thing, yeah. That's what we're shooting for. But thank you very much for your time.
Not a problem.
Okay,
Thank you,
bye-bye.
Chris. 540-0580. Donna, you're on the air.
Hello.
Yes, how are you?
I'm fine. In the late 1990s, I had 2 credit cards that, because of illness, I could not pay them. They kept adding late fees and interest charges, and it went up quite substantially. Now, in 2001, I started paying these bills. They were turned into a credit to different credit agencies, and I started paying them. I wrote them a letter and told them that I would pay them $50 a month because I was on disability at the time.
Okay.
And I told them that I would pay $50 a month until they were paid or until I died, one or the other. I am still in disability. I will be 70 years old next month, and I've been paying them $50 a month now for the past 11 years.
Yeah.
So they went from the one went from $13,000 down to $6,600. The other one went from $9,100 down to $2,500. But I'm making $743 a month, and I, like everyone else in this economy, I'm really, pinching pennies to even get by.
Well, first of all, it seems like you've been probably more responsible than anybody ever needed to be. Did you ever think about a bankruptcy option?
No, I didn't, because I don't want to ruin my credit. Isn't that awful?
Right.
But I guess I'm beyond that. But I really did, I had every intention of paying them, even though it was very long. It's going to take a long time. In 2010, they called me. They were harassing me there for quite some time in 2010, and they told me that I could pay the one off for $2,800. Well, that's like $1 million to me. The other one, they told me I could pay $5,000. Well, if I would have that kind of money, I would have certainly given it to them. So I just want to know, is there anything they can do now since I've been paying it for so long, or,
Every month that you paid it extends the 4-year statute of limitations.
But I don't know what that is.
That means that they can bring a lawsuit within 4 years of your last payment and sue you for the balance. That would be their recourse.
All right.
And then you would file a bankruptcy, and they would get nothing.
All right. So if I would file bankruptcy ahead of time, is that...
You could do that as well. So you may want to strongly consider consulting with a bankruptcy attorney. You got to stop spending all that money on this. I mean, you've done listen, most people would have filed the bankruptcy a long time ago. You've met your moral burden in my mind.
All right.
It's probably time to think about taking care of yourself, particularly now where it's clear you're going to remain disabled. You're not getting any younger, and your income is very limited. And as you've correctly pointed out, your income is not keeping up with the inflation rate.
Correct.
Because the government cooks the inflation books. And so, now nothing that used to be included in the rate of inflation is included anymore, because if it goes up in price, they suddenly find a reason to exclude it from inflation. So as you figured out, even though inflation is arguably low, it's not really low at all.
Right. All right. Well, thank you so much.
All right, Donna, take care.
Goodbye.
Now, let me talk about that for a second. No, the inflation rate's so low. Has anybody bought a pound of bacon lately? Shane, you buy any bacon? Do you buy a pound of bacon lately? No. Well, let me tell you something. When you were a kid, bacon used to cost half of what it does now, and that's only like 3 years ago. So keep that, 3 years ago, buddy. Anyhow, my point being, seriously, though, if you look at the price of commodities at the grocery store, I don't think you have to be a genius to figure this out. So just go to the grocery store, walk around, check it out, tell me what you think. Mike, you're on the air.
Carl.
What's going on, my friend?
I had a thing, my ex-wife, this a few years back, owed $3,500 on a credit card.
Okay.
And she wasn't usually just paying the bare minimum. And for people out there, you can negotiate. I called them up and said, well, I'll tell you what, we want to pay you this money, but we're going to file bankruptcy, and you're basically not going to get anything then, and we'll give you $2,400. And they went for it. And I said, I won't do it unless I have a letter that if I pay you $2,400, this is going to wipe out the debt. And I did get a letter. Now, you can't send them a personal check. I had taking it directly out of my account. But you can negotiate with those people, because if you declare bankruptcy, they're not going to get anything.
Yeah, that other lady, I'm thinking about her, and I'm going, do you realize how dutiful you were?
Was better than nothing at all. That's basically what they were looking at.
Who would have thought you'd pay for a decade?
Yeah, but that's just for your. I'm not saying it's going to happen with every credit card,
right?
But it did with this, and you can negotiate with them. They'd rather get $2,400 than you to declare bankruptcy, and maybe they'll get 10% if they're lucky. And
actually, we've noticed, and I say we meaning just lawyers in general and people that sometimes do debt issues for folks, that the credit card companies and the mortgage people in particular are not overly anxious to use the same strong-handed collection tactics they used to, because when push comes to shove, they'd rather have some than none, because they're getting it from so many sides now.
Yeah, that's true.
So the consumer's leverage on bad debt has never been better.
Right.
Which is interesting.
Well, you got to protect your butt, though. I mean, I would not do it unless I had a letter that said if I paid it $2,400.
No.
And I didn't do it till I got that letter.
I agree with you. You want it in writing because you send in the money and then they go, thanks for the payment.
Yeah, that's it. Screws to you. So that's just a little information for some people out there. And watch your credit cards, $3,500. I hit the roof when I found out it was that high.
Ouch.
I didn't know anything about it, but I was glad to pay the $20.
It comes up in divorces quite a bit, too.
Yeah, okay.
All right, my friend. Okay. I got to go to break.
Bye-bye now.
Bye. 540-0580. I just don't understand why they couldn't just inject some cortisone into I'll have another and race the horse anyhow, right? But I guess that horse is out.
Yep, no more betting. Apparently, the seating's down, or actually the seating prices are great now for it.
Because now it's not going to be the historic Triple Crown, because there's some theory that could have happened. But I guess if you race the horse too hard, which might have been what happened in the other two races, I don't know. I don't know the answer, but I wonder if anybody had a bet on whether the horse would make the race or not. Kate, you're on the air.
Good afternoon.
What's going on?
Hey, I just got to say I really enjoy your show, and you're actually pretty funny at times as well.
Oh, no. You have a terrible sense of humor, but that's okay. Go ahead.
I have a twisted sense of humor. Hey, listen, I have a question. I live in a town where we don't have porches. I have a set of 5 steps and a little stoop. So I'm a country girl, so I guess I would call this a stoop. And I've had in the past problems with other tenants that my landlord that are occupying units in my landlord's buildings here that would provoke and harass and trespass my property. Mm-hmm. So in order to protect myself, I checked with the local establishment, and they said that I had to have written permission from my landlord that gave me exclusive use of the yard. And then if they, trespassed and harassed and all this stuff, I was covered. What I'd like to know is, would my front stoop, which I maintain my set of 5 steps and my little step to get in my door. Mm-hmm. If that is if they come up onto there in a not just to ring my door and pass out literature, but in some type of threatening, harassing manner, in order to where I think that they're going to would that be considered my property?
Well, that's interesting. I mean, it's part of the common area, I guess, still. But what I would say is, at that point, it's not an issue of trespass. It's an issue of harassment. And I would got to imagine that, is the landlord willing to say, hey, this is your steps and your stoop as long as you rent this place?
I would imagine he would. I guess I just had a revelation listening to that caller a while back, with the literature passing out thing. But I did have an incident where there was provocation on my front stoop, and it just made me wonder, would that be included in my exclusive usage?
I think we'd have to look at your lease to see, because out areas like that are either common areas or they belong to the tenant, but it has to be described. It presumptively goes with the landlord's part, common areas.
I wouldn't have my landlord. I know I wouldn't have a problem having him include that language.
Yeah, so you could just include something that says that you're granted exclusive use of that stoop and stairwell as part of your apartment rent, and then that would give the police the ability to use a trespass statute. They could also use a harassment statute.
So the borough wouldn't be able to say, well, that stoop is built on.
No, not if it's
exclusively.
Not if it's exclusively granted to you. I think you'd be okay.
Okay. All right. Well, that was my simple question.
All right, Kate.
Thank you so much, and thanks for keeping us entertained and informed.
No problem. Just don't stoop to their level, okay?
I never do, Carl.
All right. Take care. Dawn, you're on the air. Dawn.
Hello. How are you?
How are you?
I'm pretty good. So I have a question regarding divorce. I'm actually just looking at options that I have. I earn about a third more than what my husband currently earns, and we've been married for about 8 years. If we were divorced, would I have to pay alimony if he fights for that? If so, how long? And the other question that I have is, I paid off some of his personal debt when we initially got married. Could that count against what I would owe him on alimony or not?
Well, interestingly, alimony and property settlements are two separate things.
Mm-hmm.
So we would do an equitable distribution first and sort out who gets what property and what credits for what they brought to the marriage and took from the marriage. On the alimony issue, then we would resolve it, I should say, after the divorce is dissolved, on how much property each party has, their income, their ability to take care of themselves, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So yes, the short answer is everything is at play.
Okay, if I paid off, he had child custody or he had child payments for $17,500 that he had not paid, and I took a home equity loan and that was paid off.
That would seem to have been something that inured exclusively to his benefit, and you could certainly make an argument. Now, does a court have to give you, a mathematical credit of that exact amount? No.
Okay.
But can a court? Yes. But it can just credit it in general in making a fair distribution. So, we might look at it and go, well, you know what? You paid off $40,000 of his debts in general, but it was 20 years ago, so we're not going to just give you back $40,000, but we're certainly going to, as we split the property up, give you, 60% of the property as opposed to 40% to him, because it seems like you brought more money into the marriage than he did.
Right. And how do they calculate how long you pay alimony?
Alimony is indefinite generally until somebody dies or cohabitates.
Okay.
Although you can have definite alimony, which is for a defined period of years as well. But we usually see that more in agreements in central Pennsylvania than we see, I think, in court awards, particularly with Cumberland County comes to mind, where the alimony is almost always indefinite.
Okay.
The idea of indefinite alimony is a little fairer because if people's circumstances change, it can be modified.
Okay.
And then we just reapply the same factors, but look at the new circumstance.
Okay. So basically, I could end up paying him alimony for the rest of his life.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
That's what the prenups are for.
Yeah, you're right. Okay, well, I thank you very much, sir.
All right, take care.
Thanks.
540-0580. Gary, you're on the air. Hey, Gary.
Hey, how are you doing?
Good, man. What's your question?
I'm employed as a technician with a service truck, and I'm thinking of changing jobs or actually going into business for myself. And I'm concerned the character of my employer is he's ruthless, and I'm concerned that he'll accuse me of stealing inventory or something like that. I don't know how to insure myself against that. I've been in business before, so I have inventory of my own, but I don't have the bill of sale for every piece of things that I have. So what steps can I take in order to, because it's just a...
So to avoid a claim that you stole stuff?
Yeah, that these things that I have in my possession in my garage belong to him. And since I do have a service truck that has his inventory on it, but he never has taken an inventory of the truck. So anything that's on here, it does belong to him, except for my hand tools.
Mm-hmm.
But so when I turn the truck back in, how do I avoid getting, him, filing some kind of thing against me that I've stolen from him.
Well, you have to give him back everything that's his, right? That's the easy part.
Right, yeah.
And then anything that's yours, just try to figure out how to document it as best as possible.
Well, that's the problem. After years of installing things and doing things, you end up with inventory of parts that you paid for, but so I can't prove I don't have the bill of sale for those parts anymore.
Right, and that gets to be the sticky part. Well, the answer is, I guess you do a catalog of what you have, and you defend it. I mean, it's going to be the burden of him or a prosecutor to prove you stole from him.
Yeah, well, I'm thinking in the terms of the first, not after it's brought to court, but when the police end up at my house and want to put handcuffs on me until I can prove I'm innocent. That's the part I want to avoid.
Yeah, I understand that.
I
understand that. I guess my thought on the matter would be to not worry. If the police come over, they have to either have a warrant to come in or your consent. And if they want to talk with you, what I would do is, say, hey, I want you to get in touch with my lawyer. And you can sit down and we'll meet with them and have a whole conversation with them and explain the whole thing and how this is just a better former employer and it's really a civil matter, if anything, but you didn't steal anything. But it would be nice if you could prove ownership of at least some of this stuff in there so that I can say...
Oh, I can. That I can. I have bill of sale for recent things that I've bought.
Yeah, so that's what I mean. And you can say, look at this. These are all recent items. Some of these are older items. And if it clearly shows that you're keeping track of some of this stuff, I think they're not going to want to prosecute it because how are they going to prove beyond a reasonable doubt their position?
Okay.
But
it sounds like I got a complex about something, but I just...
No, I represented, got a guy acquitted at trial whose former employer accused him of theft and a young police officer who didn't have a lot of training. And it really was a case of, literally probably, his first month on the job, and this witness shows up and says, this guy stole this stuff. And he doesn't do a really good investigation because he just, as we had the conversation he and I did after the trial, he just, he goes, at that point in my career, because it took about a year and a half to get to trial, he's like, I just kind of took people at face value. I thought when they show up and say they're a victim, they're not going to just make it up. And so he didn't do a lengthy investigation, and I was able to show that he didn't steal anything, and I think the jury saw that and acquitted him. But my point is that was all over an angry employer.
Yeah. And that's the concern I have.
So, Gary, you're not completely paranoid. All right, my friend.
Thank you.
540-0580. See you after break. Hey, welcome back. Carl Rominger here. 540-0580. Answering your legal questions. Listening to the ad for Prostorix. Wondering, at what age does one begin taking Prostorix? George, you are on the air.
Carl. I have a consumer problem.
Yes.
I signed a contract with Direct Buy on day one.
Oh, okay. Go ahead.
And the contract says the money's not refundable. But on page 2 is the 3-day clause. You could rescind the contract, and it said the money would be returned in 10 days.
Mm-hmm.
I waited 30 days, and they didn't return the money. And I call frequently, and you just get an answering machine. You can't find anybody. So next, I went to the credit card company of which I paid it, and initially I sent them copies of the contracts, and they lost it. And then I sent a second set. They only read the first page and said the money was refundable, so they weren't going to do anything. So my question to you is, what's my next step?
Well, I think at this point what you would do is hire somebody like me. I actually dealt with this exact issue once before.
Okay.
Actually, what my guy did was sign up with the same company, but they said they were going to send him some catalog, and he said he didn't want to be committed until he could see the catalog, and they never gave him the catalog to look at. And when they did, so much time had passed that then they were claiming that that time had passed and they couldn't rescind, and I was able to disgorge it.
Okay. Well, I guess I would have to call your office
and
do something, and I was thinking maybe the next step would go to small claims court.
Right.
in Lancaster County, I guess. Well, that would be too. It was in Lancaster, and is that where I would go to for some?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay, or call your office.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, call us, and the answer is, I'm in a 3-week trial starting on Monday.
Oh yeah, well, you know what? This has been going on for 2 months. So.
Gotcha. So yeah, when I'm in July, I'd be happy to write a letter.
Okay. Well, so I figure that's where we'll start. Yeah.
All right, my friend.
Call the same number.
717-241-6070 is the office. It's 717-241-6070.
6070.
Yeah, and for anybody else who needs it, 717-241-6070.
241-6070. Okay, thank you.
All right, hey, take care.
Bye.
Yeah, these consumer contracts can always be interesting. Frank, you're on the air.
Hi, Carl. Thanks for taking my call.
No problem.
I was traveling on vacation with my family a couple of weeks ago, and I was arrested in one of the western states by a local police officer using radar going 43 in a 30-mile-per-hour zone. I'm assuming there's nothing I can do to fight that due to the geography. My bigger question is, do I get any points on my Pennsylvania license because of that stop?
In New Jersey?
No, it's in one of the western states, Wyoming.
Wyoming. Okay, in Wyoming. Why did I think I was New Jersey? There might be reciprocity. It depends on how they send it back.
Okay.
So, how fast were you going?
43 in a 30-mile-per-hour zone.
Okay, so they put you at 13 over?
Yes, sir.
Now, I just had one in Virginia going to... I was being distracted as I tried to drive by my passenger in the car, so I accidentally sped. And he wrote me up for 14 over, and what happened was nothing. I paid it, and I watched, and nothing came back, and no notification whatsoever. I think at 15 over, there would have been. Now, Wyoming, I'm not certain, but in a lot of states, that 15 mirrors that sort of serious violation, the way DOT looks at it.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm suspecting it's not coming back, but I'm not going to guarantee it.
Okay, how do you watch it?
We just wait for PennDOT to send you a letter.
Got it.
And I'm assuming you're not going to fly or go all the way out there to fight it.
Well, if I was a rich man, I would, but I'm not.
Right, and that's what I mean. So, if there were reasons to believe that it might and it was going to be critical that you're not getting any points on your license, well, then, we discuss going out there. But I'm basing it on the fact that I'm assuming you don't want to pay to fight it or can't, and therefore all you can do is just pay attention. Now, PennDOT mail, and keep this in the back of everybody's head out there, PennDOT mail does not get forwarded. It only goes to the address on your license and nowhere else.
All right.
And so you'll only, as long as you live or get mail where your license says you are, you will eventually find out if they took any action or not.
Okay.
And the reason I mention that is I have a lot of guys who get suspended or they get what's called a failure to report. And let's say I'm driving down the road and I get pulled over and I just give a fake name and I get away with it and I use your name. A ticket's issued to you. You don't really know it's coming. You don't get the mail, but maybe I put a bad address on it, but somehow it gets tied up with your driver's license number.
Yeah.
They will suspend your license for failure to respond. Then you'll get pulled over one day for headlight out. And the officer will say you're driving under suspension, and you'll say, no, I'm not. And what we'll find out is PennDOT did mail you a letter giving you a heads up about this situation, but you were living at your mother's house and never changed your address back to wherever it is you moved to, and you're still getting some mail at your mother's house, but not all. And for whatever reason, PennDOT figured out that you weren't there, and the postman knew you weren't there, and he just returns it to PennDOT because it's not forwarded. And as a result, you don't know about it. So I'm just always going to tell people out there, there's one important reason to update your driver's license address all the time, and that's because you won't get your PennDOT correspondence and learn about things that you are responsible for, and worse, things you aren't responsible for, but which need to be corrected. So that's a long story for you, and I apologize, but I thought I'd throw it out there.
Good information.
All right, Frank, take care.
Thanks for your help.
Okay, who's next? John, you're on the air.
John, are you asking for me?
Yeah.
Hey, quick question for you. I know you're wrapping up with landlord-tenant stuff, and maybe even motel room sort of thing. At what point is an actual eviction needed, as opposed to saying, hey, you haven't paid for today or for the week or whatever, and you need to go? I mean, at what point can police arrest for trespassing, or at what point can they say, hey, this needs to be an eviction?
I've never been able to figure the answer for that. And the reason I say that is if you go to the hotel, so I went up to the Nittany Lion Inn the other day and said, I need a room for a month, right? So I booked a room for a month. So what does that mean? Does that mean I have a room? Did I just do a month-to-month lease? Or am I like a hotel guest, the ability for them to simply say you're no longer welcome here and now you're trespassing and the police escort me out? And when I've done the research, I can't find any bright line anywhere. I guess it depends on what the purpose of the stay is. And so we're probably going to look at the totality. If it's more like a hotel stay or if it's more like a landlord-tenant stay. Does that make sense?
I think so.
I don't think there's a bright line, my friend.
Okay.
All right.
Thanks, Carl.
Sorry, Jim, we didn't get to you. By the way, guy with the cab, somebody called in and said file a complaint with the PUC and give the driver a cab number if you got a complaint about being overcharged. If you need to get hold of me, RomingerLaw.com. And, of course, I'll see you guys next week, I hope.